It's Tuesday, May 21st. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Did I mention it's Tuesday? It means it's gardening day here on the show. How is the start of your season growing? Well, we are here to help with any and all grow questions. Plus, we love garden updates. Get in touch. And folks, I will say it's questions, it's if you want to just tell us how your garden is doing, we love those updates. And also, we do get pictures, right? Sometimes we get pictures about questions, and other times I just ask for pictures of folks who just want to brag about their garden, right? Just tell us the progress of what you're doing. And what we're planning on doing now is, because we put the show up on YouTube most days, Gardening Day included, if you send us in some pictures, John Pike, video producer extraordinaire, who also texts the show, he's going to go and put said pictures up over the gardening shows through the season, right? So, and we'll let you know if yours is up. But it's just, you can go, if you want to, if you hear a tip you want to go back and listen to on the show, it's on YouTube. So CBC's, CBCNL, so CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube page, The Signal has its own playlist. Check out other shows. And if you send us some of your great gardening pictures, we shall wallpaper the heck out of it for a YouTube. Here with me today, Todd Boland, Memorial University Botanical Garden Horticulturist. How you doing?
Pretty good.
And let me put the phone numbers, and I got a couple questions to ask you.
Okay.
709-722-7111. 1-800-563-8255. Emails. So if you want to email those pictures or questions, thesignal@cbc.ca. And the text line is also open, 709-327-8206. How was the UK?
The UK was fantastic.
Oh, I was following you guys on Facebook, and I was very jealous. Tell folks what I'm talking about.
So for the last 2 years now, as a fundraiser for the Botanical Garden, we've been offering tours of the gardens of southern England. So this year we had, I think it was 8 gardens, and then we also had a free day where most people went into London and just sort of did their own thing for the day. I know that day I did almost 30,000 steps. So I did the touristy thing in London from one end to the other, I think, downtown. But so we've been doing this now for the last 2 years. Usually it's in the spring of the year, April or May. However, next year we're hoping, if all goes well, that we're going to repeat it in July. Because we've been seeing the gardens now in the spring, been there, done that. And a lot of the clientele that have gone on the trip, as much as it's lovely to get away and actually see a spring, because England in late April, early May is about the same as early June here in Newfoundland, right? So this way you get to have 2 springs. Yeah. Actually, I almost came back to winter.
Or one spring.
Yeah, that's right. So, but, a lot of these gardens, of course, in England are, massive gardens. They're like, 60, 70 acres in size. And they have spectacular perennial borders, which we never get to see. Because we're just seeing the spring bulbs, the daffodils and the tulips and the really early flowering perennials in our gardens. But, the classic summer flowering and the roses, my gosh, every one of these botanical gardens have huge rose gardens. And, of course, the roses are not in bloom that early. Close, but not quite that early. So we figured, if we came back here in July, it'd be like brand new gardens all over again. And it should be really at the peak of color everywhere. Now, it'll also be the peak of people everywhere. So there's always a drawback. In the spring of the year, we basically have the gardens to ourselves, which is wonderful. But anyway, I think it's going to be it should work out well. And I should note that this is open to the general public. Cool. So anybody who wants to join, once we announce, we do have a limit. And, but it's first come, first serve. And this year we actually had 4 people from Nova Scotia, and we had a person from Ottawa.
Yes, bye.
So it's spreading out, and really it's mostly through word of mouth between the staff up there and what's on our own website. But we're not really advertising it in a big way per se. So it is mostly word of mouth, and I'm amazed that that it's gotten as far now as Ottawa.
This is one of it kind of reminds me when something, it's like, those best kept secrets, like, did you know that they do a thing every year? And then it goes kind of like bonkers later. But like, this is so cool, right? Like the amount of folks, the word getting out. leaving here at that time, like as you mentioned, right? Like not a whole lot on the go here. You go in there, things are growing. The first garden you step foot in, what's that like each time?
Oh my gosh. Well, usually I'm trying to think the first. Oh, both times we went to the Cambridge Botanic Garden first.
Right.
I mean, as soon as you arrive, of course, everything's green because all the lawns are practically green year round. But you're getting that real bright green flush of new foliage on the trees just when you arrive. The only thing that wasn't in leaf when we got there were the ash trees and the beech, but everything else was in full leaf. And in fact, the apple trees were in full flower. Which is really weird because here you had apple trees in bloom and not a leaf on a beech tree. And yet I'm wandering around town here now and I'm seeing leaves coming on the beech trees and yet there's hardly a gig of life in the apples.
Well, that's weird.
Isn't it? So it was, I don't know, just a weird juxtaposition compared to what we're used to having here in St. John's. Even the roses over there the first roses were just about open and yet there wasn't a leaf on a beech tree. And here, of course, it's going to be like middle of July before the first rose is open. And the beech trees will have been leafed out for like 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it was really bizarre. It really was bizarre. But at the same time, just to get out, step off the bus, enter into the garden and seeing all these tulips in bloom and the wisterias coming into flower on the buildings and
just the smell of spring.
And just the smell of spring.
Right.
Yeah, it really was. It was absolutely spectacular. So, it was good. It was a good break. Give us to get that adrenaline going, get the juices flowing, the ideas going. And then you come back, and it's still really early spring in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
All you've missed is maybe some crocuses.
Yeah. Actually, that's fine.
Which is fine. And then you just, like I said, you come back with all these ideas, and you say, oh, geez, some of these things I can do. Now, some of the things you can't do. But, there are a lot of different ideas that we saw that you could do. And so it's like, okay, well, we have now the whole month of, the end of April, the first couple of weeks of May to start putting this together before the garden really starts to take off here.
What's the magnolia scene like? Was it too late for too late?
No. We missed the really early magnolias. So like the star magnolias, which are just starting to bloom here now, they were finished. But the big saucer magnolias, which we don't have so many of here around in St. John's, they were just coming into the peak. And then some of the later magnolias, so like they have, we can grow them here too, the yellow-flowered magnolias. They're usually around here, it's into June before they start to bloom. They were at the peak of perfection over there then.
Because there's my favorite tree, the one there in the back of Munn. Apparently, I've been told that's open. I didn't get over there yet this year, so I need to walk over and take a look. Yeah,
so that's an old cultivar called Dr. Merrill, and that came out of the the Arboretum down in Boston, Arnold Arboretum. And back in the 1950s, I believe, is when that was released on the market. So it's one of the older hybrids, like one of the very first hybrid magnolias created. I mean, there's lots of new varieties on the go these days. But it was named in honor of one of the botany professors at Harvard, who was back there in the 30s and the 40s. And apparently he really got the botany program going there. So they named it in honor of him, Dr. Merrill. So we've had the one I think the university planted that one in 1984. I believe is what I read somewhere. So it's probably the tallest and the oldest magnolia growing around here. It's in a very sheltered site, so it's really perfect where they have it growing.
Yeah, and it's that courtyard where they got the roses and stuff here next to, like across from the math building and near the Arts and Admin building.
Yeah, so because it's almost like in a sunken garden, it's right up against the wall of the science building, so you got a bit of a heat trap there. So no doubt they'll probably bloom maybe a week or two earlier than the same tree would be blooming in a more open garden, we'll say. But it's sort of like really the harbinger of spring to my way of thinking. It's certainly down on campus when I was going to university.
Oh, totally.
That was the sign of spring when that magnolia started to bloom.
Yeah, I love magnolias. So when that is out, you're like, oh, here we are. We've done it. We've arrived again. This is great. Yeah. Speaking of in bloom, how are things at the Botanical Garden?
So we're probably a week to 2 weeks behind. This weather has been just struggling here on the Avalon for the month of May. I mean, it's been beautiful weather on the West Coast, but anyone who's here in town knows just how miserable the weather has been here. Just fog and cold day after day, and of course the garden responds accordingly. So things are really, really slow. I swear today you'll see them grow. because, this is the first, what I call a really good spring day. And, I can literally, I'm sure within 24 hours, plants will have grown probably an inch.
Yeah. Lick of sunshine yesterday. Looks like there's some sun out there today. Plus with the temp, right? Because yesterday, it was, before
it was still cool.
Yeah. I was on my patio down in Kitty Vitty, and after about 40 minutes, I was like, what am I doing? And I left the patio because it was, cold.
Yeah, especially in the East End. I mean, it was a lovely day out in CBS.
Oh, sure. I mean,
it's a different world out there.
That's every day.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so things are about 2 weeks behind, hey?
Yeah.
Well, here, I'll put up the numbers again. So, folks, Todd Boland's here. It's gardening day on the show. If you've got any questions or garden updates, get in touch with us. And I've got a couple of emails to get to, too, actually. Grow questions or grow updates, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. The text line is open, 709-327-8206, or emails thesignal@cbc.ca. All right, so here's one. Dave Squire sent me a note, texted me. I actually forgot this last week. Hey, Adam, Dave Squire's here. So he heard the great kickoff with Ross a couple weeks ago. He had a couple questions. First, my shed roof is moss covered. Any suggestions for dealing with that?
You should take the moss off, because that is going to start to eat, down through the shingles and all the rest of it, and it's not a good thing. There's moss killer that's on the market, and I think that's iron ferrous sulfate or something along those lines. If you treat it with that, that'll kill the moss quite rapidly. But then you need to get rid of the old remains that are there to get it back down to the clean shingles again, right? So it's a matter of, once you've killed that moss, to get up there on the roof and almost, almost like a shovel, or not, obviously just sort of to scrape off that and bring it back down to the clean shingles again, or wood, or whatever the case may be. And then keeping an eye on it. It might be a matter of, once you've cleaned that off, then if you supply that with a little bit of that moss killer each year, that should be enough to keep it at bay. Yeah. Now, obviously, for it to be growing there, chances are it must be shaded and fairly wet for the moss to grow. Because you do see that around the city here, usually like in the downtown area, more say the Waterford Bridge Road area.
Oh, yeah.
Because all big trees there, so a lot of the little sheds there and garage roofs are shaded, and you got the leaves falling on top of the roofs, and they're rotting and providing a bed for the moss to grow, amongst other things. Yeah. Right? Because I've even seen weeds growing on the roofs of these houses.
Gosh, yeah, of course.
Right? So, yeah, so you need to try to nip that in the bud before it gets too bad.
Another question here from Dave. Also looking for a seedless grape suitable for outdoors. Our backyard is south and a microclimate. Thanks.
Now you're asking for $1 million question there, because a lot of grapes that do survive here and have a chance to ripen in Newfoundland are not seedless. Because you got ones like Concord. It's a very popular one, but it does have a seed. And there's another one called Steuben, and that's another one that's got a seed. And even the ones we have growing in the greenhouse at work, up at the garden, which is a red grape. The previous two I mentioned were purple grapes. That's a red grape that we have, and that's got seeds.
Right on.
So I'm thinking, I won't swear to it. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking of a cultivar that I know it's supposed to be suitable for Newfoundland's climate, called Himrod. But I can't recall if Himrod is a purple or a green. And I'm not 100% sure if it's seedless in that regards. So the best I can do, I have a list of all the recommended grape varieties for growing here in Newfoundland. And I'd have to go back to that. So what I can do is go through my list, and I can flip you the answer, and then you can flip it to him.
Can do. Yeah,
okay.
Perfect.
We can do that.
All right. There you go, Dave. So send me a text, or I'll text you with the answer once I get them. We also had Pat Power sent us a note, questions about a problem with the growth on a flowering crab. So here's what Pat has to say. The flowering crab in question is in my daughter's yard. It's about 15 years old and really hasn't done well in my opinion, but has bloomed. The growth has just developed. I'm concerned. Is it lacking in a particular nutrient? Is it getting too much of something? They put their compost on it. Is there something that can be applied? What will happen if not treated? Buds forming, yes. And yesterday I put a weak solution of 20-20-20 on it, and that's when I noticed the growth. So that's that picture I showed you earlier.
Okay, yep.
Thoughts on that?
Okay, so the picture that this lady sent in of her crab apple was the branches were all covered in lichens. So there's sort of these crusty grayish brown or grayish white growths that can sometimes form on branches of trees. Yeah. And I mean, we'll see them on the spruce trees around here all the time. All the spruce trees here in Newfoundland and the fir trees are covered in lichens. And which just basically they're just looking for a place to grow. Yeah. Right? So a place that's getting a bit of light, getting the proper moisture, the proper air circulation, and lichens are happy. Now, normally they're more common in areas that are fairly sheltered as opposed to really, really windswept areas. But normally they don't do any harm to the trees. They're just looking for a place to grow. Now, having said that, I have seen a number of crabapple trees with lichens growing on them, and it seems like the trees are not really thriving. So, whether or not, I don't think it's the cause of the lichen that's doing it. I think the lichens are just coming in after the fact. But I'm thinking there's something going on with the soil. Usually, if there's any kind of plant, whether it's a tree or whether it's a flower, that's not doing well, it's usually something going on at the root level. Yeah. Okay? If the roots are healthy, the upper growth will be healthy. Right. All right? So she said it never was thriving. We know here in St. John's, most of our soil is pretty abysmal for the most part. And a lot of people try to grow trees, especially, in really horrible, horrible soil. Okay, I don't even call it soil. It's more like gravel. Okay, and trees are just not going to grow in that. I mean, most plants are not going to be happy growing under those circumstances. So she said she was putting some compost on. That's certainly a good thing. I don't know about the weak solution of 2020 because when we're dealing with a tree, it's a heavy feeder, number one. And the roots, of course, are going to be expanding way out beyond the what we call the drip line, where the outermost branches are on the tree. So 2020 being a liquid fertilizer is only going to be there for a split second. Bingo. Great for, like, if you got containers, but for a tree, you really want to have a slow release. Okay, so anything like that that's a balance, like a 20-20-20 in a granular fertilizer that's going to be a slow release would be far more useful. Okay, and now is the time of the year to do it because the buds are just starting to expand. So now is when the tree is really starting to uptake those nutrients. So my suggestion is for it to get something not necessarily high nitrogen because that'll just produce lots of leaves and not so many flowers. So like a 20-20-20 or a 10-15-10. If the middle number is high, that's really good for root development. But you want to have your first number a little bit lower than your second number, or at least equal with the second number, as opposed to being the highest number.
And like you said, granular. So then if you're putting that around, like how far out do you need to
so you don't put that right next to the trunk of the tree because most of the feeding roots are right at that what we call the drip line, which is the outer set of branches. So if it's a fairly young tree, well, she said it's been there for 15 years. So, I'm going to assume the branches are probably spread at least probably 6 feet, if not more, across now. So you're talking about putting it in a fairly even band, like a circular band, come out at least 3 to 4 feet from the trunk. Yeah. Okay, and make that band probably 2 to 3 feet wide in a circle like a donut. Okay, around underneath the tree, and then hopefully that granular fertilizer. Then, chances are it's probably going to be in our lawn. Okay, because unless you got a tree growing in the middle of an open area, chances are the feeder roots are actually going to be in your lawn. So yes, that fertilizer's got to get down through the grass. The grass is probably going to grab that too. Yeah. All right. So you don't go too light on the fertilizer, okay, because your grass is going to compete with it. But at the same time, you don't want to go too heavy because it could burn the grass. Yeah. Right. This is why I say you go with a slow release. Because a slow release, then the chances of you burning the grass is going to be much more minimalized.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for that. Let's go to the phones. And if you want to join the conversation, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. Uvadi's on the line from Glovertown. Hi, how you doing?
Hello, beautiful day.
Oh, it's gorgeous there too, hey? Good.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I didn't know you would talk about the tree, but the first question is, I have a garlic go in the fall, but I have some like a space on the row. So can I put onion between garlic? And the second question is, my lilac tree in the front of the house, it kind of like old and had a lot of lichen go, and they're getting taller and they produce less flower. But I like to see the lilac when they bloom. I gradually move some in the back in the waterfront, so they're not in clover and I can see better. So should I cut all my old lilac, like when 30 years past, I guess? So that's 2 questions.
Okay, so if you have space between your garlic, enough space for the onions to grow, yes, onions and garlic are very closely related, and both should be okay. Your garlic, of course, now being planted last fall, your garlic is probably up 6-7 inches tall at this point. So you can poke the little onion bulb, the little onion sets in between them, assuming that you think you have enough room to do that.
Yeah, I have enough because I plan to put some vegetable between when the garlic finish. I can eat vegetable.
Right, yep.
So I plan for that too.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. So otherwise, then yes, onions and garlic will go along great together.
Okay, good.
In regards to your lilac, yes, lilacs can get very old, and when they get really old, they don't flower quite as well as they used to when they were younger. However, most lilacs are really able to, you can hack them really back, and they'll flush right back out again. So if your tree is getting really big and it's not flowering very well, you can give it a real hard prune, and it'll resprout back up from the base. And now is the time of the year to do that.
Okay, so I can cut the old.
You can cut all those old branches. In fact, if there's any young stems coming up from the base, you can leave those because give them a couple of years and they'll start to flower. But the really old ones, the ones where you have to get basically a saw to get them cut down, those are the ones you can remove at this stage now.
Yeah, I moved the younger one, the white color. They go everywhere in the front, so I dig it out and cut, and I moved to the waterfront.
Okay.
But the purple one, it's hard to grow. They don't transplant very well. So.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Good luck.
Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, there we go. Got a couple of emails in. This one says asparagus for the subject.
Okay.
This is the 3rd summer for the asparagus. This is the first time we harvested any of it. Wondering what percentage of it we should harvest and for how many weeks do you think we'll be able to harvest more? So here's a picture of the asparagus.
Wow.
Those are fantastic.
Wow. Ours at the garden haven't even poked their noses up yet.
Now, this is not a St. John's email. This is from Linda in Deer Lake. So there you go.
I knew they were having spectacular weather over there. That's unreal.
Yeah, like it is like just full like asparagus. Like, they look fantastic.
I'm so jealous.
So thoughts, right? What percentage of harvest and how many weeks do you think they'll be able to harvest more? Yeah,
one we have to garden now must be, gosh, I guess ours is probably 3 years, maybe 4 years. We only have the one plant, right? So it's going to take a long time. I'm assuming this person has more than one based upon the amount of spears she had there. I mean, she's got a big feed there.
Yeah.
And so generally speaking, you harvest them at the right stage where she's there now, where they're probably about 3 to 4 inches or so in length above the ground, and you can cut them just below the ground. Okay. But you don't want to remove too much. It's like rhubarb, right? Because you need to have so many to grow back up so the nutrients go back down to the plant again to end the season. So if in her case, I would not harvest anything after like the early first week of June or so. At that point, then any new spears that come up, then I would let them develop into the full leaves so that much more energy can go back in. And then the plant will bulk up even more, okay? So, because it's like a fine wine. Rhubarb or the asparagus just get better and better and better the older and older they get. They're very heavy feeders, so this is the time of the year now too. If you're going to put some fertilizer or a compost, put them on them as well to really drive them. And yeah, she's obviously doing something right. Those asparagus, that picture was fantastic.
Oh, it looked like a treat, right? Like the picture came in, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, she just went to the supermarket and bought a tray full of beautiful asparagus.
And better because they're actually
locally grown.
Locally grown and fresh. Right?
So it's we're talking now the 20th of May.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'd go much beyond like say the end of the first week of June. So she'll probably get another feed off of them yet.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you like your asparagus?
I just saute them.
Yeah.
Like literally, they just touch the pan for like 2 seconds. Just enough to heat them up.
Yeah.
And so they have a nice crunch. I like them al dente.
Oh, so good. All right, let me see. We've got good afternoon. Question for Todd. I'm on the text line now. This pertaining to a shrub bed. Okay. I have my shrubs surrounded with some mulch, which covers my soil. Wondering if you can have too much mulch on top of the soil. Also wondering if I should pull back the mulch to work the soil and add some compost material. That's from Nancy Clark.
Okay, so yes, you could possibly have too much compost. The whole idea of the compost, and this is the sort of this decorative stuff that you buy in the supermarket or you buy in the box stores or whatever, is a sort of cut down on your weeds, ideally. Okay, it's the whole idea. But the problem with a lot of that kind of compost, which is usually like pine bark nuggets, something along those lines, when that starts to break down, and it will after a couple of years, it actually robs nutrients from the soil, particularly nitrogen.
Oh.
And you'll find then that your plants that have been mulched start to get a little bit more stunted. So I never use mulch myself. Like if I use mulch, I just use compost. Right, composted material, leaf mold in particular, like old shredded leaves that have been left to rot for a couple of years. Black magic, that's what we use in the garden all the time. Now, that is not quite as good as the nuggets for keeping back down the weeds, but it means that the weeds that do pop up are very, very easy to pull out, right, because that mulch is fairly loose. And that mulch itself then, actually, when it starts to break down even more, actually provides nutrients. It doesn't steal nutrients. Like the pine bark nuggets do. So what you need to do with the if you're using that kind of a mulch is a couple of inches is plenty.
Yeah.
Okay. When you start to see it breaking down, and you'll notice, that the nuggets are not as firm as they were and they're starting to get a bit soggy, then I would just take them out altogether. That might be an opportunity then I wouldn't loosen up the soil. I would just put in an organic layer of compost on the top because a lot of those shrub roots are going to be close to the surface. So if you start ripping, digging that up, you're going to be disturbing a lot of those roots.
Yeah.
Okay. So just put down your layer of nice compost if you can get access to that, or old aged manure or whatever. Put that down. You can apply then a regular garden fertilizer, again, a slow release, like 10, 15, 10, something that's going to be good for lots of flowers. And then you can put a new layer of the pine bark nugget mulch back on the surface again. Okay, so that's the best thing. So rather than just leaving that mulch there and adding, because I see that all the time, people just, it's looking discolored now, I need to add more, and you just add more, and you add more, and you add more. And then you get this very, very thick layer of half-rotted pine bark nuggets, which really robs a lot of the nutrients from the shrubs.
And then you wonder why your shrubs don't look good.
And then your shrubs are probably not doing quite so well as what they could have been doing. So as soon as you start to see that mulch looking a little bit decrepit, just remove it completely. Now's your chance then to hopefully improve the soil a little bit and then put in a new layer of mulch.
New mulch.
Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, there we go. If you've got follow-up questions, so the text line, 709-327-8206. If you want to call us, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. And it's everything from garden updates to chats. For the emails obviously also are great, thesignal@cbc.ca. And folks, as you're listening, throughout the season, right? We put all these shows up on YouTube for CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube page. The Signal has a playlist. So today's show will be up. If you send us pictures from your garden as things progress along, we'll pop those up into the show too. So if you want to go back and kind of be like, hey, look, I missed a tip, or I want to see something that Todd was talking about, well, it's all there for you. And we're also on the podcast. Can't put pictures on the podcast, though. From the text line, leaves collected last year, they've broken down over winter. Can you work that into your vegetable garden now, for lettuce, carrot, et cetera?
Okay, so we use rotted leaves all the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's our main compost that we use at the garden. Usually our leaves are probably 2 to 3 years old, okay, before we use them. Because you want to make sure the leaves are fairly well rotted, and we always shred them as well, and they get shredded probably twice. So we'll shred them this year. Last year's leaves, for instance, that we collected, we will shred them this year. They will go into another bin. And then next year, we will shred them again, then they're ready to use.
Right.
Okay? And by that time, it's almost like black friable soil.
Yeah.
It's so well rotted, right? So the leaves that came from this year now, or I should say from last fall, if they can shred those in some way, if you have like an electric lawnmower, run over them with the lawnmower to break them up a little bit more. You can mix them into the ground now because once they're mixed into the ground, they're going to rot a lot faster than in our case where they're just put into a big leaf pile, right? So the leaf pile is going to be very, very slow to break down. But if you're digging those leaves, which are shredded up a little bit, broken down a little bit into your soil, all that bacteria in your soil then will very, very quickly get at those and start to break them down. Then the worms and all the rest of that as well, right? So, yes, so they could do it now, but I wouldn't mix the leaves in whole. I would try to get those leaves broken up in some way, shape, or form.
From the email list that we have, I'm slowly going through this one. Subject, apple trees. Hi. I noticed that most of the apple trees around Gander still have last year's apples hanging from them. Why do these apples not drop last fall? And also, which variety of apple trees is the best for the Newfoundland, so the islands, climate? From Daryl.
Okay, so sometimes the apples just hang on. Last year was a bumper crop of apple trees. And so some of the apples may just still linger. That has no bearings on what your crop is going to be for this year. It just means that you haven't, here in St. John's, they very rarely stick on because we have such windstorms. Once you get off the Avalon, the wind's not nearly so bad as what it would be here. But so I wouldn't worry about that in that regards. Now, in regards to the best varieties of apples to grow here, the one thing you got to keep in mind is that we have a real bad problem here in Newfoundland with apple scab disease. And it can really do a number. And most of the commercial apples that you buy in the supermarkets that the box stores and even the actual nurseries sell, so things like Golden, like Gala and Braeburn, Macintosh, any of these, they're all prone to scab, right? So you buy them in the stores, you say, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a nice little Macintosh tree. And you put it in your garden, and then you finally get your fruit after a couple of years, and then your fruit get all cracked and really ugly looking, okay? So number one is you've got to be a scab-resistant variety, all right? That's going to be a little bit more challenging to find, but they are available. Maybe not available so much locally here, but there are mail-order catalogs based out of Ontario that do sell these scab-resistant varieties, okay? One of the nicest ones that's fairly early is one called Sweet 16, if you can find that one. And I know a number of people growing that one here in the province, and they're getting great crops off of that one. Another one is called Red Free, and called Red Free because it's free of scab. All right? So we're not the only place in the country that has a problem with scab, but we certainly are. It is a prevalent disease here in our province in that regards. So again, it's one of these things that I teach a course all about fruit growing, and I provide a list to people of all the best varieties for that. So again, I can flip you that list, and this is an email, so then you can then forward.
Sure. Yeah,
you can forward that list then to that particular person, which will be all the varieties that are scab resistant that do well here in Newfoundland. There's probably around 10 or so that do well here in the province.
You got any courses? So there's when are your courses coming up?
So I already the fruit course. I always do that one usually like in April, so that people have an opportunity then to place their orders with mail order.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of the varieties of apples and pears and that I talk about that are good for our climate, for some unknown reason, the nurseries just don't bring those in.
Okay.
Right? They end up bringing in, like I said, the classic ones that the supermarkets are selling. But they're growing in the Okanagan Valley. We're not the Okanagan Valley.
No,
right?
we are not.
Not at all, or Southern Ontario. So they just don't do well here in our climate. But whereas I know a couple of these different nurseries that are in Ontario, they are specialists, and they offer a lot of the different varieties. Now, I think Vessey's and PEI, they offer a few of them as well. But there's one called Whiffle Tree. And Whiffle Tree, based out of Ontario, they have a lot of the different varieties that I talk about in my course that are really good, scab resistant. Now they're only, 1 or 2 year old trees. They're only like whips, so it'll take you 2 to 3 years before you start to get your first fruit. But the people I know who have ordered from them said their plants have done really, really well. Right, so that's a good source. And there's another one. I got the name forgotten now. They're based out of Quebec, and they have some good quality material as well.
Excellent. Let me get back to the text line, folks. So if you want to text us, so Todd Boland's here from the Munn Botanical Memorial University Botanical Garden. If you want to call us, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Emails, thesignal@cbc.ca. Texts, 709-327-8206. wondering if it's too late to transplant a peony who was not happy where it was initially planted. It has good leaf growth, but not enough sun to bloom, and beautiful. I think I may have added the emphasis to beautiful there. CBS, thanks a bunch. By the way, it was about 12 inches tall.
Okay, so yeah, it's starting to get a little bit late now for moving a peony, but you can. It can be. I mean, and we're up at the garden now. We have peonies that we've propagated that we will be selling at the plant sale, which is in like 2 weeks' time, 8th of June. Mark it on your calendar.
I've got it in my calendar actually.
Okay. And we will have some peonies for sale at that meeting or at that plant sale. So yes, you can do it. I mean, if it's growing in the shade, it's not going to flower. They want full sun to be happy. And so if you're going to dig it up now, try to get as much root as you can. They have a really thick, almost like wood type of a root to them. It's not like a standard plant in regards to their roots. So try to keep as much of that root on them as you can. When you transplant it, make sure it's well watered. Keep an eye on the watering because I'm surprised already. Just for the last couple of days, it's been cold, but the ground is already starting to get a bit dryish. I was really surprised after all the rain. After I know, it's like, is that possible? But of course, at our garden, our soil is so good that it's really, really free draining, right? So, so keep the water to it. You can fertilize it. In this case, with a peony now, I would probably use a water-soluble fertilizer, something that's going to be quick, that's going to get to lickety-split. But now if she's going to do it ASAP. Don't put it off any longer because you're sort of reaching this sort of that very tail end now where you can actually do that.
Hear that, John and CBS? Do it now.
Do it now.
Stop listening to the show.
Day. Get
outside and do it right now. Unless you're at work. And then you can, I don't know, I mean, nothing like an afternoon sick day.
There you
go.
go.
I did not recommend that. Here's another text. Growing up, we used to go picking strawberries. Do they grow anywhere here if not planted? So they had wild question mark next to it. They were small now, not like the ones people plant. I remember, because me growing up in Mount Pearl, because there was a field behind the house, and we get these little teeny tiny strawberries that were. I remember them being good, but this is my memory from a long time ago. So
right, yeah. So yeah, we do have wild strawberries here in Newfoundland. They're only tiny in size, really, really tasty.
Yeah.
But now as to where you're going to find them, there's just no way of being able to pinpoint because they just grow usually on roadsides, right? So I know when you go out the Trans-Canada Highway in the next. Well, they're already starting to bloom now. I've seen some wild strawberries. The first flowers just starting to open up on them. Certainly, I imagine in central Newfoundland and the West Coast, they're probably in full flower now. And it's just a matter of, noting as you're driving by, if you're seeing a roadside embankment that's full of white flowers now, that's wild strawberries. So keep an eye, on that and go back there in early July and see what's there.
And check it out.
Right? Because, they are wild, right? So there's, I can't offhand say, oh, yes, you go, number such and such on such and such street, and you're going to find wild strawberries, right? It's not
I'd be
quite...
impressed if you could. You'd be like, actually, here's where.
Right? And, of course, a lot of people have their favorite wild strawberry patches.
But they tell no one.
They tell nobody, right? Because they're not that common in the big scheme of things, And it's like people who have their favorite blackberry or raspberry spots because they're not that common. It's not like blueberries or partridge berries, which are pretty much everywhere, So you can, you go to a particular, any kind of bog or barren area, you're going to find blueberries, right, or partridge berries. But when it comes to things like raspberries and blackberries and strawberries, they're a lot more specific as to where they're happy.
Yeah. I noticed running down, I'll go for runs, coming down Virginia River Trail, right before you get, just before you get down to Kitty Vitty, where you get the Legion there on your left.
Yep.
That part of the trail, summertime, you get some raspberry.
Exactly.
Those get harvested pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, when it comes to things like blackberries and raspberries in particular, where you often find those best plants are areas that were previously disturbed. Right? So it could be old homesteads or it could be old gravel pits. It seems like once you get a disturbed area, these kind of fruits, shrubs or whatever start to move in there. And even the strawberries, usually it's in an area that's been disturbed because once you have an area that becomes well established, all the native wildflowers start to grow up and shade out the strawberries and the strawberries basically die out.
Yeah.
So strawberries are very almost ephemeral in regards to where they occur. You may get a spot that does really well for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then suddenly the productivity drops dramatically as other things move in.
Right. Huh. It's gardening day here on The Signal. If you want to join the conversation, 709-722-7111, 1-800-563-8255. Text us, 709-327-8206. Email us. And also, we'd love to have your garden update pictures. So email us, thesignal@cbc.ca. John Pike will go and put those then up on the Signal, like the broadcast that we put up on YouTube every day. So for Gardening Day, those pictures will be put up through the summer if you want to check out our YouTube playlist under the CBC Newfoundland and Labrador's YouTube page. Every show goes up, pretty much. Got this email in from Diane. Let me see. So I have tulips that are really slow to bloom. Is there a suitable fertilizer to put on them at this time?
Okay, so
this is from Kenmount Terrace. So the microclimate that is Kenmount Terrace.
Okay, so that's not the best microclimate. No offense. So your tulips are probably slow just because of where you're growing them.
The elevation and everything
The elevation
else,
and everything else. And, really here in St. John's, we're not really into the tulip season yet for the most part. The daffs are looking pretty good now. But it's just the really early tulips are just starting to bloom. Like in my own garden now, the regular tulips, they're not even showing any color yet, right? And
see, I blame the mainland because I see pictures of people on Facebook with armies of tulips behind them, like armies. And here we are looking outside, and I'm lucky to see a dandelion or two on the lawn.
So don't be too discouraged yet that your tulips are not in bloom, okay? Give them time. Give them another couple of weeks, and I'm sure they'll be in flower at that point. Now, having said that, a lot of people grow tulips, of course, just buy new ones each year, right? They bloom, then they rip them up and throw them in the garbage, and they replace it with annuals or whatever the case may be. If, on the other hand, you decide you want to keep your tulips, and tulips are not as long-lived in our climate as daffodils are. So people can have daffodils, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger and better every year. But tulips, if you're in the right spot, they'll come back. It's rare that they'll really start to bulk up as such because they really like to have a long, hot, dry summer, which we don't have. Daffodils, on the other hand, don't mind it being a cooler, wetter type summers, right? So that's why they do so much better here. Now, so if she wants to try to get her tulips to keep coming back from year to year, now again is the time of the year because just before they're really rapidly growing now. And again, a slow release granular fertilizer works well. I would use something as simple as a 6-12-12, which you can generally get at most of the nurseries will sell that. I know the Country Co-op, they sell the 6-12-12. That's what classically we use as potato fertilizer, okay? Because the same idea with a potato and a tulip or an onion is that the main root is the bulb. So you're trying to bulk up that bulb. The bigger the bulb is going to be, the better the chance that you're going to get flowers again for next year. Right? So same like a potato fertilizer, you're trying to bulk up the tubers to get a nice big large tubers. So that's why you're giving them the 6-12-12. But that 6-12-12 will work very well on any kind of bulbous plant. Right? So whether it's a lily, a tulip, a daffodil, whatever the case may be, go ahead and give us a little bit of that granular fertilizer. Don't be too heavy, but just a nice even sprinkling. All amongst the plants. Try not to get it on the foliage, okay, because it can burn the foliage. But so just make sure it's on the soil surface. And that'll, with the rain we get and all the rest of it, if you want to scratch it into the soil surface, that'll be even faster to break down and start to provide nutrients for the plants. And then other key point with the tulips and daffodils is don't cut off that foliage after the flowers have faded. You have to leave that foliage green as long as possible. The plant will tell you when it's ready to go dormant because the leaves will start to turn yellow, probably not until early to mid-July maybe even. And then once you start to see those leaves turning yellow, they can look very unsightly. Then you can cut them off at that stage, okay, because the nutrients have already gone back into the bulb at this stage. But you don't want to cut off that foliage too early because it's basically preventing them from bulking up that bulb.
And that is our learning lesson for today, folks.
There you go.
Bulk those bulbs. All right, we got a text in. Hi, this is from Bill. Hi, put my carrots, onions, spinach, and lettuce in yesterday. Raised garden in fish boxes. A little concerned now when I see the forecast for the next 2 weeks, RE temperatures. That's from Bill.
Yeah. Up at the garden now, the only thing I have sown up there are the onions. I put my onion sets in about 2 weeks ago because they don't care about the cold. And I just planted the broad beans today. Peas would be fine to go in the ground now too. They don't mind the cold so much. Lettuce, carrots, obviously they like the soil to be a little bit warmer. Chances are they'll be perfectly fine. It's just that they're going to be sitting in that ground for a while before they start to sprout. They'll sprout when the time comes. Strangely enough, we've actually had lettuce that never sprouted last year that sprouted the following spring. Go figure. So when they're ready, they'll sprout. And I know last year I sowed my vegetable seeds at the garden. By now, most of the vegetable seeds were in, but they still never sprouted till the middle of June. My only drawback, because we have raised beds, but they're not in fish boxes. Yeah. So our beds are full of worms. And the problem is that the seeds will sit there until the soil gets warm enough for them to grow, but the worms are still active. And the worms are going and rooting and popping up out of the ground and going back down again all around where I have the seeds sown. And then when the seeds came up, they were all helter-skelter because the worms had disturbed the soil.
You're like,
right?
Come on, guys.
Yeah. So this is why this year I'm waiting until like the middle of June. Our growing season, for things like carrots and that, middle of June, you're still going to get great crop of carrots. You're going to get great crop of lettuce, cabbage, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if there's much of an advantage of sowing them too early. This is what I learned last year. So now I've decided, no, I'm going to wait till like the first week of June before I sow any of the seeds. Better chance then the weather will be warmer, and the weather is nice. I mean, these seeds will germinate within a week, right? And the quicker they germinate, the better the chance that the worms are not going to be disturbing them on me.
Yeah, right. All right, we got, and folks, if there's any other follow-up questions or anything else for the answers, or if you're listening to it, answer for another question, and you have your own questions around it, the signal at cbc.ca, the text line 709-327-8206, 1-800-563-8255, or 709-722-7111 for calls. We got a couple texts left to get to. Question for the gardening show. Our backyard used to have relatively good grass and dandelion cover, some goutweed, and a bit of moss given it's north facing. However, we got a dog last year. While we walk and run him every day, we do have to let him out in our backyard quite regularly to pee. And he, being a large, energetic breed and 1-year-old, occasionally runs back and forth quite energetically, tearing up the grass, moss, and everything else in his way except the goutweed. Not even an energetic dog can tear up goutweed.
No.
The lawn is now in pretty rough shape and very muddy. We want to fix this. Now that something resembling spring is here, what would you suggest is a good solution to get some green cover in our backyard? We are able and intend to cut the dog's access off altogether for a period to help with recovery, but want to know what we should be putting down. Hydroseeding grass, ? Sod, clover, let the goutweed take over. Don't do that. Thanks in advance.
Okay, so they're dealing with a north garden, so they're not getting a heck of a lot of sun. And obviously the fact that they were getting all this goutweed and moss and all that, it's a hard one. It's not going to be much that's going to grow in the shade that's going to form a nice solid ground cover outside of goutweed.
And the neighbors are just watching and be like, no, you
cringing.
won't.
Yeah. But in the big scheme of things, really sod is better than seeding because sod is going to be more permanent. It's like an instant fix, right? But in the long term, of course, that grass, give that 2 or 3 years, not getting enough sun, the moss is going to start to move in, dandelions and well, not so much dandelion, but goutweed certainly probably will start to move back in again as well. And of course, as soon as the dog gets out there, it's right back to square one again. But the only way they're going to have even a fighting chance of having something look sensible out there is sod.
Yeah. That's
the only way. Yeah. Because anything else you put out there is just the grass as a seed in a shady area. It's just not going to come to anything. And seed, I find, unless it's in full sun, it takes a long time before it really knits together nicely enough that you can really even walk on it as a person, let alone have a large, rambunctious dog, running through there. Whereas sod, give that a couple of weeks to get its roots in, it will tolerate some of the dog activity there. It will probably stay green for a couple of years before the moss starts to move back in again. So, they may find that a couple of years down the road, they're going to have to repeat this process all over again. And sod is not necessarily cheap, but that's about the closest they're going to be able to get, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right. Well, there's your answer for the doggy in the backyard. And goutweed too. Hey. All right. Hi guys. Great gardening show as always. This is from Denise in Clarenville. Question. I need to move my rhubarb patch. No choice in this if I want to preserve it. No details on that, so I'm curious. But hey, we won't pry. The rhubarb is already growing quite nicely. What's the best way to handle this? Build the bed in a new spot, etc.? ?
Okay, so rhubarb need a deep soil. They're very heavy feeders as well. So and they need well-drained soil. Okay, so that's the, sort of the criteria there. Good soil that's well-drained, that's fairly deep. All right. You can transplant it now. They have a big, thick root, almost, again, like the peonies, or, in that regard, it almost looks more like wood than anything else. Strangely enough, you don't need to have much of a root on a rhubarb, and it'll survive. Now, however, when you transplant rhubarb, you can't harvest it. You can't harvest it for at least a couple of years. Okay, you need to really let that bulk up to get over that shock of transplanting. So no harvesting this year, and I would not recommend any harvesting for next year. But then by the third year, you can probably start to take a light harvest from it because it should be well rooted enough by that time that there should be getting back to some big, sensible sized stalks again.
Yeah, we had folks calling in last week, just kind of talking about the state of rhubarb so far because just the lack of sun and stuff is slow this year. Separate thing altogether, but just the slowness again of the season. We're getting down there in time, but we got this text in. Did I kill the lettuce seedlings in the greenhouse by sprinkling lime on the soil after they emerged? ? Smiley face, but with a tear is the emoji used. Before then, the sprouts halved in number, which may have been sow bug related. Very disappointed. They were so promising. Okay,
so lime in itself shouldn't do much harm. However, as long as it's not on the foliage, okay? And I mean, it's like fertilizing. If you're using granular fertilizer, putting it between the drills of your lettuce is perfectly fine, but you never want to have that granular fertilizer on the leaves of the lettuce. You don't want the lime on the leaves of the lettuce either, okay? So if they did use any of that lime powder or the granular got on the leaves of the lettuce, they may very well have inadvertently did some damage to it. So, it's just one of those things. It's so early in the year. Don't worry about it. Mix that lime into the ground now if indeed they have to replace all that lettuce. Dig that lime into the ground, re-sow again, and you'll still have
get back at it.
Yeah, because it's only just barely past the middle of May.
Yeah,
right. I'm assuming they're probably growing this in a greenhouse.
Yeah, it is
right?
a greenhouse.
Yeah. So they would have gotten. Their plants are probably like a month old now. So they'll be a month later in getting their first crop, but it's not the end of the world.
No, chalk it up to
experience,
just life. Yeah, move on.
So if any listeners out there, if you're fertilizing or if you're liming, you can do that like almost any time of the year, really. As far as lime is concerned, as long as you don't get it on the foliage of the plants.
Yeah.
Now, if you're liming your lawn, that's a different story. Again, and even if I was liming a lawn, and I've done that in the middle of summer, I usually water it right afterwards. Okay, just to make sure that the lime is getting down between the grass blades.
I didn't think we'd get this in before the show ended, but from Denise in Clarenville, there's an excavator coming in for sewer line work.
Oh, God.
This is why the rhubarb must leave the area.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for that. So that's why.
I know the pain you're going through. Yes. We're going through that pain right now at the garden.
So there you go. And the last question, the last 30 seconds here on this show, Todd, you said the 8th, right, of June.
8th of June is our
what are you selling?
So we have a little bit of everything up there: trees, shrubs, well, mostly shrubs, and a lot of perennials. Right. So yeah, it could be the first big plant sale of the year. Normally we sell plants at the field center, but because we're closed due to the septic upgrades, we haven't been selling anything there. So it'll be a big plant sale in the spring. And then we should hopefully after that have plants on a regular basis until the big plant sale in September.
So like if I wanted something, like let's say if I knew someone who just bought a house in December and wanted something for his front lawn, this would be a place to go check stuff out?
Yes, definitely.
Right.
And we have a lot of plants. A lot of them are propagated from plants growing at the garden.
Beauty.
Or by volunteers, so we know they're plants that do well here in our climate.
Todd Boland, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's it for another gardening day. Thanks for the calls, the texts, the emails. Feel free, like I said, if you want to email us garden updates, pictures, the signal at cbc.ca, send it in. And, I think we'll probably give out some prizes through the summer, too. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we're talking about home building. According to the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, this province needs to build thousands of new homes per year to keep up pace with demand. Well, we're drilling down into the issue. We've got home builders here on the show tomorrow. Don't miss it.